The vast emptiness of space stretched before the human starship horizon, its metallic hull reflecting the distant starlight. Lieutenant J. Park stood motionless at the command console, his fingers hovering above the holographic interface. The ship's sensors had been tracking an unusual energy signature for hours, a faint but persistent pulse that seemed to dance just beyond their complete understanding. Yuna's warship moved like a phantom through the cosmic darkness. Her people, known for their advanced stealth technology, had been exploring this sector for generations. She was not just a warrior, but a scout, selected for her exceptional skills in navigation and combat. Her silver armor, embedded with adaptive technology, responded to her slightest muscle movement. The moment of encounter happened suddenly. 1 second, empty space. The next, a massive alien vessel materialized from what seemed like nothing. Jay's eyes widened as the tactical display erupted with warning signals. Red lines crisscrossed the holographic projection, indicating potential threat levels. Unidentified vessel. Jay spoke into the communication system, his voice steady despite the tension. "You are entering restricted human exploration space. Identify yourself." No response came. Instead, the alien ship began a complex series of maneuvers that demonstrated incredible technological sophistication. It moved with a fluidity that suggested the vessel was almost alive, responding to some unseen intelligence. Yuna's hands moved across her own control panel. She was assessing the human ship, calculating potential strategies. Her species had encountered humans before, unpredictable beings who seemed simultaneously primitive and ingenious. She had heard stories of their remarkable adaptability, their capacity to transform challenges into opportunities. The Horizon's weapon systems began charging automatically. Advanced AI protocols were preparing defensive and offensive capabilities. Jay watched carefully, his training preventing any sudden or emotional reactions. Every movement was calculated, every decision measured. Suddenly, a burst of energy erupted from the alien vessel. It was not an attack, but something more complex, a scanning pulse designed to gather information. Jay recognized it immediately as a technological probe, meant to gather comprehensive data about the human ship's capabilities. "Interesting," he muttered, his fingers dancing across the interface. Instead of blocking the scan, he allowed it to proceed, but inserted subtle layers of misdirection. The data the aliens would receive would be partially true, partially fabricated, just enough to create confusion. Yuna's scanning systems returned conflicting information. The human ship appeared simultaneously more advanced and more primitive than her initial assessments suggested. This uncertainty was unusual and triggered a heightened state of alert in her tactical processing. The next few moments would be critical. Both ships maintained a delicate distance, like two predators sizing each other up before a potential conflict. Jay could feel the tension. Every crew member on the horizon was alert, their training evident in their controlled breathing and precise movements. Yuna made the first decisive move. Her ship executed a complex spatial maneuver that would have been impossible for most known species. It was a demonstration of technological superiority, a subtle threat wrapped in a display of capability. But humans were not easily intimidated. The Horizon responded with its own unexpected maneuver, not by matching the alien ship's complexity, but by revealing an entirely different approach to spatial navigation. Where the alien vessel was precise and calculated, the human ship moved with an almost organic unpredictability. The tactical computer began running millions of potential scenarios per second. Probability matrices calculated potential outcomes. Battle strategies evolved in milliseconds. This was not just a potential military encounter, but a moment of first potential contact. Jay knew that everything could change in the next few moments. First contact scenarios were delicate, complex interactions that could determine the future of human-alien relations. One wrong move could escalate from exploration to conflict. Yuna observed the human ship with growing curiosity. These humans were not what her previous intelligence reports had suggested. They moved differently, responded differently. There was an element of controlled chaos in their approach that was both fascinating and slightly unnerving. As the two ships continued their intricate dance of potential conflict and curiosity, something extraordinary was about to unfold, a moment that would potentially change the course of interstellar relations forever. The stars watched silently, cold and distant witnesses to this extraordinary encounter between two species, each believing they represented the pinnacle of technological and strategic sophistication. The isolation chamber hummed with a soft, clinical light. Una sat motionless, her body pressed against the transparent energy barrier that separated her from the human research team. Her silver armor had been carefully removed, replaced with a simple gray uniform that emphasized her alien physiology. Lieutenant J. Park approached slowly, a small translation device clutched in his hand. The device was a marvel of human technology, capable of interpreting complex linguistic patterns in real time. He stopped several feet from the barrier, maintaining a careful distance. "You are our prisoner," Jay stated, his voice calm and measured. Una's amber eyes locked onto him. Unlike most captured warriors, she showed no signs of fear or desperation. Her posture remained straight, her gaze intense and calculating. "Prisoners can become allies," she responded, her voice carrying a surprising depth of understanding. The research vessel Horizon continued its journey through the vast emptiness of space, with Una now an unexpected guest, or more accurately, a carefully contained specimen of an unknown civilization. The medical team had been fascinated by her biological makeup. Her body showed remarkable adaptations, redundant organ systems, enhanced cellular regeneration, and a neural network that seemed to operate differently from any known species. Days passed in a careful dance of observation and limited interaction. Jay found himself assigned to primary communication duties. Each conversation peeled back another layer of complexity about Una and her people. She spoke of a civilization built on strict codes of honor, of technological achievements that humans could barely comprehend. "Your ship," Una asked one day. "It uses a form of quantum propulsion we have not encountered before." Jay smiled slightly. It was more a statement than a question. "We adapt," he responded simply. "Necessity drives innovation." The crew watched these interactions carefully. Some saw potential threat, others saw an unprecedented opportunity for understanding. The ship's artificial intelligence continually analyzed every word, every micro-expression, building complex predictive models. Una began to notice subtle details about human behavior. The way they moved, the complex social interactions, the seemingly random moments of kindness that contradicted her initial understanding of humans as purely aggressive explorers. Jay was particularly interesting to her, a military officer who seemed more interested in understanding than conquering. One particular conversation stood out. They discussed the concept of exploration, of why their respective civilizations ventured into the unknown reaches of space. "We seek knowledge," Una explained. "Every journey is a chance to understand more about the universe." Jay nodded. "We are not so different then." The isolation chamber became less of a prison and more of a meeting point between two entirely different worlds. The energy barrier remained, a physical reminder of their initial encounter, but the mental barriers began to crumble. The medical team continued their studies. They were particularly fascinated by Una's cellular structure. Her body showed remarkable healing capabilities, with injuries closing at rates that seemed impossible by human standards. Blood samples revealed complex molecular structures that challenged everything they knew about biological science. Jay spent hours reviewing the data, trying to understand the person behind the scientific readings. Una was more than just a specimen. She was a living, thinking being with her own hopes, fears, and understanding of the universe. Sometimes, during the quiet hours of the ship's night cycle, Una would share stories of her home world. Distant planets with landscapes that would be impossible to humans, floating cities, crystal mountains, oceans that moved like living organisms. Jay listened, fascinated by the way she described her world. The crew's initial tension began to shift. What had started as a potential military encounter was becoming something else, a chance for understanding, for communication, for something beyond simple territorial conflict. Una, too, was changing. Her initial defensive posture began to soften. She saw humans not as simple, aggressive creatures, but as complex beings with their own intricate social structures and unexpected capabilities. As the days turned into weeks, something extraordinary was happening. The line between prisoner and guest, between alien and human, began to blur in ways no one could have predicted. The horizon continued its journey through the endless darkness of space, carrying with it the promise of something entirely new, a potential bridge between two civilizations that had once seemed impossibly different. The solar storm came without warning. Massive waves of radiation and charged particles erupted from a nearby star, transforming the calm of space into a violent, unpredictable battlefield. Alarms screamed throughout the horizon, their harsh electronic voices cutting through the ship's usual calm. Jay's hands flew across the control panels. Years of training kicked in, but even he could see this was different. The storm's intensity exceeded anything in human records. Protective shields were flickering, struggling against the overwhelming cosmic assault. Una watched from her isolation chamber, her alien eyes scanning the chaos with a strange combination of professional assessment and growing concern. This was no ordinary stellar event. Something fundamental was happening to the fabric of space around them. "We need to reinforce the quantum stabilizers," she called out, her voice cutting through the noise of emergency systems. The human crew looked surprised. Their alien prisoner was offering assistance during a critical moment. Jay didn't hesitate. He approached the energy barrier of her chamber, his eyes meeting hers. "Explain," he demanded, his voice tight with urgency. Una's explanation was rapid and precise. Her people had developed advanced shielding techniques that could potentially protect against extreme stellar radiation. The human technology was good, but it wasn't designed for this level of cosmic assault. The ship's chief engineer, a woman named Kim, listened carefully. Her initial skepticism gave way to a desperate understanding. They were facing a threat that could destroy everything. Working together became their only option. Jay used the translation device to communicate Una's complex technical instructions to the engineering team. Her knowledge of quantum mechanics was far beyond human current understanding. She described shield modulation techniques that seemed to bend the very laws of physics. Piece by piece, they reconstructed the ship's defensive systems. Una's instructions were translated, adapted, implemented. Human ingenuity met alien technological understanding. The ship's computer struggled to process the rapid changes, but the combined team worked faster than any single system could. Outside, the solar storm raged. Waves of radiation that could strip away entire planetary atmospheres crashed against the horizon's modified shields. What would have been certain destruction became a battle of technological innovation. Jay worked alongside Una's holographic projection, their movements synchronized despite coming from entirely different biological backgrounds. She guided his hands, showed him complex molecular alignment techniques that humans had never conceived. "Your species adapts quickly," Una observed, a hint of respect in her voice. The storm reached its peak. For several terrifying moments, it seemed like nothing could survive. The ship shuddered. Critical systems began to fail. But then, something extraordinary happened. The modified shields held. As the danger passed, an unusual silence fell over the horizon. The crew looked at each other, then at Una. She had saved them. More importantly, they had saved themselves by working together. Kim approached Una's chamber, her face a mixture of exhaustion and wonder. "How did you know?" she asked. Una's response was simple. "Survival requires cooperation. My people learned this long ago." Jay watched the interaction, understanding something fundamental had changed. The barrier between prisoner and crew, between human and alien, had become something else entirely. They had faced death together and survived. The medical team's subsequent examination revealed something unexpected. The intense radiation and their collaborative efforts had created a unique quantum entanglement between Una and the ship's systems. She was no longer just a prisoner. She had become part of the Horizon's living network. As repair systems worked to restore damaged components, Jay noticed something in Yuna's eyes. It wasn't just calculation anymore. There was something deeper, a connection that went beyond simple survival. The solar storm had changed everything. What began as a potential conflict, then became a careful study of an alien species, had transformed into something neither humans nor Yuna's people could have predicted. Outside, space returned to its usual darkness. But inside the horizon, a new understanding was brewing. A potential future where two very different species could become something more than just survivors. The days following the solar storm brought unexpected changes to the horizon. Yuna was no longer confined to her isolation chamber. Her movements were now unrestricted, though carefully observed. The crew watched her with a mixture of curiosity and respect that hadn't existed before their shared survival. Jay noticed how Yuna moved through the ship. She studied everything, the way humans interacted, the small details of daily life that seemed insignificant but told complex stories about human culture. She watched crew members share meals, solve problems, support each other through challenges. One morning, in the ship's small communal area, Yuna sat with a group of technicians. They were discussing a complex engineering problem, and to everyone's surprise, she began to offer insights. Her approach was different, not just about solving the immediate issue, but understanding the broader context of human technological development. "Your species solves problems by breaking rules," she observed to Jay later. "Where my people would follow strict protocols, humans see limitations as challenges to be overcome." The ship's cultural database became Yuna's constant companion. She consumed information about human history, art, and social structures with an intense curiosity. Wars, music, scientific discoveries, personal stories. She absorbed everything, constantly comparing it to her own civilization's understanding. Jay found himself explaining human concepts that seemed simple to him, but complex to an alien mind. Love, friendship, the idea of choosing a path that wasn't purely logical. Yuna listened, her amber eyes reflecting a growing understanding that went beyond mere data collection. The medical team continued their studies, but the relationship had changed. Yuna was now a participant, not just a subject. She explained complex biological processes from her species' perspective, revealing technologies and understanding that human science had never imagined. During one conversation, she shared a story about her home world, a planet with floating cities where entire civilizations lived in massive structures that moved with atmospheric currents. Jay realized that her people's understanding of survival was fundamentally different from humans. "We adapt the environment to us," Yuna explained. "Humans adapt themselves to the environment." The crew began to see her differently. She wasn't just an alien prisoner anymore, she was a bridge, a way to understand something beyond their current knowledge. Her insights challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligence, survival, and potential. Cultural exchanges became more frequent. Yuna learned to appreciate human music, surprised by the emotional complexity of artistic expression. She was particularly fascinated by jazz. Its improvisational nature reminded her of the adaptive strategies of her own civilization. Jay watched this transformation with a mixture of professional curiosity and something deeper. The line between professional observation and personal connection began to blur. Yuna was becoming more than just a subject of study. She was becoming something closer to a colleague, perhaps even a friend. The ship's artificial intelligence began to change as well. Yuna's alien algorithms merged with human computational systems, creating something entirely new. The AI started to demonstrate problem-solving capabilities that exceeded previous limitations. During a routine star mapping session, Yuna demonstrated a method of spatial calculation that was completely foreign to human understanding. The navigation team watched in amazement as she revealed entire regions of space that had been invisible to human sensors. "Your limitations are often just your current understanding," she told Jay, her voice carrying a hint of what might have been humor. The transformation wasn't just about technology or scientific understanding. It was about something more fundamental. Two species once seen as potential enemies were learning to see each other as something more, potential partners, potential friends. As the horizon continued its journey through the vast emptiness of space, something extraordinary was happening. The barriers between human and alien were dissolving, replaced by a growing understanding that went beyond simple communication. Una no longer felt like a prisoner. The ship no longer felt like a place of containment. They had become something else, a shared space of discovery, of potential, of something that could reshape understanding of life itself. The stars outside continued their silent watch, witnesses to a transformation that could change everything. The ceremony was unlike anything either species had seen before. Soft light filled the horizon's largest observation deck, where stars created a living backdrop to a moment of profound significance. Jay and Una stood together, representing something more than just themselves. Their union was not just a personal commitment, but a diplomatic bridge between two civilizations that had once viewed each other with suspicion and fear. The crew watched silently, understanding they were witnessing history. Una wore a garment that combined elements of her native culture with human design, silver threads intertwined with traditional white fabric. Jay's uniform had been similarly modified, showing subtle patterns that represented both human and alien symbolism. The ship's captain, a veteran of numerous space missions, performed the ceremony. Her words spoke of understanding, of breaking barriers, of finding connection in the most unexpected places. Each sentence was carefully translated, ensuring both human and alien crew members could fully comprehend the moment's significance. Their hands were joined using a traditional ritual from Una's civilization, a quantum-level binding that symbolized more than physical connection. It represented a merging of consciousness, of potential, of shared future. But this was more than a personal union. Political leaders from both human and Una's civilization were watching. Communication records showed intense debates, diplomatic discussions that had been ongoing since their unexpected encounter. Some saw this as a threat, others saw unprecedented opportunity. The union represented a potential path to understanding, to peaceful coexistence. Una's people had complex social structures that valued strategic alliances. Jay's human background appreciated the potential for mutual growth. Together, they represented something entirely new, a living example of what could happen when different species truly listened to each other. The ceremony included elements from both cultures. A human exchange of rings combined with a complex quantum energy ritual from Una's civilization. Music played, a combination of human classical compositions and alien harmonic frequencies that seemed to vibrate at the edge of human perception. Crew members from different departments watched. Engineers, medical staff, navigation specialists. Each saw something different in this moment. For some, it was a scientific breakthrough. For others, an emotional connection that transcended species boundaries. The quantum binding between Jay and Una was more than symbolic. Their neural patterns had already begun to show unique synchronization during the solar storm. Now their connection became something permanent, something that could potentially change how both civilizations understood connection. "We are more than our differences," Jay spoke. His words translated perfectly. Una's response carried deep meaning. "We are the potential of understanding." Their first kiss was a moment of pure, unexpected beauty. It wasn't just a physical connection, but a meeting of two entirely different evolutionary paths, two different ways of understanding existence. The ship's artificial intelligence recorded every moment, creating a historical record that would be studied for generations. This was more than a personal union. This was a potential turning point for interstellar relations. Political leaders watching the transmission saw something remarkable. Here were two beings from completely different backgrounds finding connection where others saw only conflict. It challenged every existing model of interspecies interaction. Outside stars continued their silent dance. Galaxies moved. Cosmic systems continued their ancient patterns. But something had changed. A small moment of connection that could potentially reshape understanding of life itself. Una's hand rested on Jay's. their quantum connection visible through subtle energy patterns that danced between their skin. They were no longer just individuals. They were a bridge, a potential future. The ceremony concluded, but something had begun, a new understanding, a new potential for connection. As they turned to face the assembled crew, the stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter, witnesses to a moment that could change everything. The horizon continued its journey through space, carrying with it a promise of something entirely new, not just a ship, not just a crew, but a living example of what could happen when different species truly listened to each other. Their union was more than a personal commitment. It was a statement, a hope, a potential future.